We'll get started in a minute. Alors, bonjour tout le monde. Il est 1h01. Nous allons débuter. Welcome everyone. It's 1:01. Let's get started. So welcome to United for Literacy's National Annual Forum on Literacy and Immigration, the power of literacy in navigating the immigration experience. Bienvenue à tous et toutes à notre forum national annuel qui porte cette année sur la littératie et l'immigration. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a great turnout today. We had, I think, over 550 people registered. Not everyone will join us today, but still, this shows how much interest there is on the topic. So welcome again. My name is Mélanie Valsin. I'm the CEO of United for Literacy, formerly known as Frontier College. So let me start by saying that I come to you from Tiohtià:ke, Montreal, the unceded lands of the Kanien'kehá:ka, the Mohawk Nation. Tiohtià:ke is known as a gathering place for many First Nations, and we recognize the Kanien'kehá:ka as custodians of the lands and waters from which I come to you today. As we gather for a discussion on literacy and immigration, it's important to remember that while most of us or our ancestors came to Canada or came to this land from other parts of the world, Indigenous peoples, so First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples have lived here for thousands of years. Their deep connection to this land predates all other migrations. This land acknowledgement holds particular meaning today as we explore how literacy can foster inclusion and opportunity for newcomers to this land. It reminds us to honor the original stewards of this land and recognize that Indigenous knowledge and meaningful contributions are essential to shaping a future that reflects the diversity and strengths of all communities. So, United for Literacy, who are we? We're a national charitable literacy organization. We work coast to coast to coast from Newfoundland to BC, all across the Arctic, to offer tutoring and mentoring to adults, to youth and children who need extra support to succeed in school, at work, or at life in general. Our programs remain relevant today, as they did when we were founded on the principle that every place is a learning place. We continuously adapt our programs to answer our learners' needs, and together with the incredible support of our volunteers and our partners, United for Literacy works to bridge the literacy gap. But what is this literacy gap? In school, it might be where a child falls behind the rest of the class because he or she is struggling with his reading skills. For adults, it might mean, or it can be the difference between knowing how to read a handful of words and the skills needed to find a sustainable job or understand the instructions for life-saving medication. So I guess at United for Literacy, we see every day the impact of our collective work in the lives of the tens of thousands of people that we have supported over the years and that we support every year. And these people are looking to gain new skills and to build the confidence that they need to reach their goals and to explore their potential. So we're very, very proud to host today's forum to explore the immigration experience and the role literacy plays for people starting new lives in Canada. During this forum, we will begin to address questions such as how are newcomers to Canada integrating in the education system, or how can literacy practitioners best support newcomers to Canada for those newcomers who need to improve their language skills and literacy skills. So as part of an important network of organizations and resources that work to make Canada a more welcoming place for newcomers, United for Literacy is proud to be part of this conversation. So don't worry, we're going to get started in a minute. I'll introduce you to our fabulous host in about 30 seconds. But first, I was asked to take care of a few logistical things. I know it's a little bit boring, but it's important. So please listen carefully. So all panelists and our host will be speaking in English. If you would like to listen in French, please click on the button at the bottom right of your screen, the bottom that says interpretation. It's like a little planet or a world symbol. Then you can click on French and mute original audio. I'll repeat that in French. Donc, si vous voulez suivre en français, s'il vous plaît, veuillez cliquer sur la petite icône là, qui est comme une petite planète, un petit monde, et ensuite cliquer sur Interprétation et cliquer aussi sur Enlever la bande de son originale. Donc, vous allez pouvoir suivre en français de cette façon parce que tous les panélistes vont s'exprimer en anglais. As we have live translation today, we will all do our best to speak clearly and slowly. Obviously, I have to work a little bit on the slowly, but I'm getting there, hopefully. Following the panel discussion, we will open the forum for a question and answer period. So everyone today that is taking part in the webinar has been muted. But if you have a question, you can type it in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. If you have general comments, you can also feel free to type them in the chat. And then the forum will conclude at 2:30, but it's not going to be over. Super exciting. After at 2:35 or 2:40, we will host breakout sessions with our fantastic panelists. So you will have the opportunity to join a specific panelist and to ask questions and connect with them. So each panelist will talk about something different in their own room. The breakout sessions will open right after the conclusion of the panel discussion, as I was saying. So they'll begin around 2:35 to 40, and they will end at 3:15 Eastern Time. These breakout sessions will be held in Zoom, and you will have to log off of this webinar and then join one of the panelist meetings in the link that was provided. You got the links to the breakout rooms in the reminder email that you received this morning. So you might just want to go back to that email and check which room you want to join, and you will be able to open that room closer to the end of the panel, of the event. So for the Francophones in the audience, there will be one French-speaking individual in every single breakout room. So if you want to ask questions or interact in French, no issues there. It'll be easy and they'll help you with translation. And then the breakout rooms, by the way, will not be recorded, but this forum is being recorded. The recording of the forum will be available on our website, unitedforliteracy.ca, after the event. And we'll be happy to send you the link as well by email if you want to watch it and share it with others. And don't worry, by the way, only the panelists are seen in the recording, not the audience. Bon. Est-ce que c'est assez là pour la logistique? Je crois que oui. Alors, I think it's enough logistics. I'm ready to introduce you to our wonderful host. So it's my great pleasure to extend a warm welcome to our host today, Yves Gérard Méuloko. Yves is the Secretary General of the Canadian Commission for UNESCO, who operated under the aegis of the Canadian Council for the Arts since 1957. So the CC UNESCO is one of 200 national commissions around the world working to advance the mandate of the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. Yves Gérard leads the CC UNESCO in its effort to engage, support, and amplify the work of Canadian civil society organizations and knowledge holders in the fields of education, sciences, culture, communication, and information. So thank you so much, Yves, for being our host today. And everyone, please join me in welcoming Yves and have a great event. Thank you. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Mélanie. It's such a real pleasure to join United for Literacy for such an amazing event. And I have to say, I'm a bit humble because I've been seeing, people greeting each other and people from basically everywhere in this magnificent country. People such as, I've been seeing destinations such as Madoc, Sioux Lookout, Saskatoon, Winnipeg, Brooks, Alberta, Lévis, I've seen Gatineau as well, Moncton, and it's just keep coming. So thank you all for being here. It's such an amazing honor to be able to host this event, which is very important for the eyes also from the Canadian Commission for UNESCO. We are thrilled to join this magnificent group and making sure that literacy and also lifelong learning is a great experience in our magnificent country. I just want to highlight, first of all, that I join you from Ottawa, magnificent but cold Ottawa today, and the Canada Council for the Arts and the Canadian Commission for UNESCO acknowledge that our offices are located in Ottawa, and which is on the unceded and surrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, whose presence here reaches back to time immemorial. Lifelong learning, that's the reason that we are gathered here today. And lifelong learning is very essential to alleviate poverty and hunger, and also addressing the climate crisis, fostering peaceful societies as well, in shaping our future and shaping our nations as well in our communities. This journey begins in early childhood, preparing individuals for a lifelong learning path that becomes increasingly important during the course of their lifetime. UNESCO has been working to realize the vision of literacy for all since 1946. And in the belief that acquiring and improving literacy skills throughout life is an intrinsic part of the right to education and brings with it a huge empowerment and benefits. But despite progress globally, and please, those numbers are very, very huge. 754 million adults across the globe still cannot read and write, and fewer than 5% of adults have access to learning opportunities. Can you imagine that in the 21st century? That's huge. Literacy drives sustainable development and enables a greater participation in the labor market, improves child and family health and nutrition, reduce poverty, and expand life opportunities. UNESCO's approach to literacy continues to evolve as a definition, of course, of what it is as literacy. And UNESCO and its Institute of Lifelong Learning are dedicated to enhancing the capacity of member states also to develop effective and inclusive lifelong learning policies and system in alignment, of course, of the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDG number 4, which of course is education. The UNESCO Global Network of Learning Cities is also an international network comprising cities that successfully promote lifelong learning across their communities. A strong commitment to lifelong learning by a major and cities administration, and a track record for good practices and policy initiative are key prerequisite for becoming a learning city. And fortunately, and I have to share that information with you, in Canada, we unfortunately only have one learning city from UNESCO, which is Edmonton. So myself and my team are very dedicated to go around the country and try to find cities and communities who will join our network in order to make us more sustainable and achieve the goal of having literacy being more accessible to our communities and our newcomers in this country. And this is the topic that we will be discussing today. Every year, United for Literacy welcome leading leaders in their field. And this year, we are very thrilled to have a great and impressive group of panelists for this forum. So I'm going to introduce them one after the other, and you can find ways to clap if it's possible, if we can see you clapping for them, because this has been an amazing journey for some of them. The first one that I would like to introduce, Naim Demoli. Naim is a learner at United for Literacy and has been participating in the Literacy and Basic Skill program since August 2022. And Naim immigrated from Kosovo in 2007 to Canada and is now a real estate agent operating in Hamilton and Burlington area. Also, Parisa Mahmoubi. Parisa is a senior policy analyst and leads the City Howe Institute Human Capital Policy Program. Her research interest focuses on social policy. We have a concentration on demographic skills, education, labor market concerns as well, including labor market outcomes and second-generation immigrants in Canada. She regularly writes a column in the Globe and Mail business section as well. So welcome, Parisa, as well. Fadouma Moussa. Fadouma is an elementary teacher and the executive director of the Somali Canadian Association of the Waterloo region in Ontario. She has always been passionate about creating equal opportunities, both in the classroom and in the community as well. She has many years of experience in the settlement sector and frontline social services sector as well. Welcome, Fadouma, to this forum as well, and thank you for sharing your experience as well. Venantier Nutmende. Venantier is currently the community coordinator of United for Literacy in Manitoba. Previously, she has worked as a project coordinator at Manitoba Federation of Labor, Occupational Health Center, and Resettlement Assistant Program caseworker, and Women Guidance Counselor as well. Venantia, thank you for being here. It's such a pleasure to have you and to hear a lot more about your experience. Jeremiah Teku. Jeremiah is a lead settlement worker in schools located in Fredericton, New Brunswick. He moved to Canada 22 years ago as a refugee with his family of 5. Jeremiah then worked at the United Nations High Commission for Refugee, providing support for the Guatemalan refugee families. He is an active member of the Canadian Council for Refugee Board of Director, and also president of Madhu Verma Justice for Migrants, and member of the Maritimes Guatemala Breaking the Silence Network, and the founder also of MCAF FDSA Futsal Program. Thank you all for being here. It's such a pleasure to have you. And thank you also for joining us for this amazing forum. So let's kick our discussion, first of all, with a very, very powerful video on why literacy is very important from immigrants. And that video was done by Kevin Jin Kwan Kim. Let's watch this video, please.
Hey. 뭐래?
Hello.
뭐래? 뭐래? 왜 뭐래? 뭐래? 야, 뭐래? 어?
I'm talking to my mother. And Sophia.
뭐래? 뭐래?
Wow. This gets me really emotional because we can all relate to this. Thousands of Canadians can relate to that video. Thousands, some of our neighbors can relate to that. Ourselves. No one should have this level of anxiety because of their inability to function freely in our society. Unfortunately, many Canadians have lived and continue to live this type of anxiety. While every newcomer in Canada faces unique condition, literacy is a common factor. Today's society demands sophisticated understanding of written language. Everyone deserves access to literacy and learning. Some newcomers may arrive in Canada already fluent in one or both of Canada's official languages. Others may not. Either way, newcomers need to show an adequate knowledge of English or French to be functional in this country, in our societies, in our communities, and also to meet the needs of their families as well. I invite you to take a look at the discussion paper, which is amazing, by the way, that can be found in the reminder email that was sent this morning. So now it is time to start our conversation. So my dear colleagues, panelists, I would like you to open your microphones because I have a very important question for you to start with. Literacy, this is the topic of the day, but literacy and immigration. So my first question goes to you, panelists. Why is literacy important for immigrants or immigration? And I would like to start with Parisa, please, for an answer to this one.
Thank you, Eve. Hello, everyone. So, why literacy is really important? Let me just start with saying that immigration is, deciding to immigrate to another country is a major decision for any individual. And to be able to make the right decision, to prepare for this journey, sometimes it's quite lengthy. It's really important to have high levels of literacy skills. Literacy empowers immigrants throughout their pre-immigration and immigration processes, and also it leads to a smoother transition into the new country for immigrants, and ultimately contribute to better economic outcomes and better integration into the labor market and society. Something that in all individuals, regardless of, for example, the reason that people decide to immigrate to another country, the ultimate goal to improve their well-being, to improve, to have better outcomes. It could be social outcomes, it could be, but ultimate goal would be economic outcome. People, they want to have better life for themselves and also their children. So literacy empowers individuals to achieve that. For example, we have different pathways for immigration, and also arriving into new society requires different requirements and also adoption. So all these factors requires high level of literacy to gather information, to be able to prepare for the new society, new labor market, and to be able to bring the skills that or experience that individuals had their home in their home country, to bring it into new country like Canada, and to be able to contribute to the society.
Immigration, as you mentioned, indeed, Parisa, is a tough decision for families. Leaving your loved ones behind, moving to another country, to another culture, is a tough decision already. And having that adding another barrier to that, which is literacy, can be also very challenging. Naeem, I would love to hear about your experience, because we mentioned while talking about your bio that, well, you moved to Canada in 2007 from Kosovo, and you have been required the services of Frontier College, now United for Literacy. So what was your experience with literacy when you moved to this country, Naeem?
Thank you for inviting me in this national forum of Frontier College. Yeah, it's true. I moved in 2007. In the beginning, it was tough because you didn't know the resources, the organization, the institution. Then slowly you start to learn. But it's challenging for people that they don't have any family here to tell them where they can find these resources. So for me, I was a bit lucky. I had my sister. She told me that you can go to the ESL. But what I find the ESL different from United from Literacy is that ESL has so many students, and it's just the process of learning. It's way slower than in United Literacy. For example, in USL you have one teacher with 20, 30 students, and some of the students, they go slow. So it's one standard for everybody. But for United Literacy, it's different in this way because you have one teacher and he pays attention to you. He's methodical. He knows what to expect. He builds on what you already know. So it's way better. So I find the way I find this the United for Literacy. Actually, my wife, she did some research, and then she find United for Literacy. She enrolled the kids actually for math classes. And then my wife, she started attending the class, and she started to work. She was then after a couple months of basically learning, then I joined. That's the way I find the resources.
That's very interesting. We mentioned, also with the video that we had and the day-to-day challenges, having access to, being able to write, to read a prescription, being able to function within the. Is that something that you face, challenges that you face yourself?
Absolutely. For example, you need a lot of English. Like there's like a spectrum of how much you know and how you don't know, right? Because some people that they might know. What I find this class is helpful as a learner is that sometimes we learn here and there a word, but that word might be so advanced. And then when you start talking to the native speaker, like English native speakers, then you find out, for example, I just had one conversation with one of the native English speaker and then I knew the word encounter, but I didn't know which word is, because when we talk more casual, but sometimes we pick up advanced words, so it just doesn't fit in the conversation. So then all these words, I put it down, I write it down, then we talk with Yoanda. By the way, Yoanda is an amazing teacher. He's one of the best, because I used to go to CSL, but he's amazing. And then we talk about this word, and he tell me what's the casual way of saying, for example, come across. So it just you feel like you're being more part of this the system, the culture, when you start speaking with a native English speaking.
That's very interesting. There is some kind of debate going on right now in the chat, because I think you mentioned ASOL, the classes that you have joined at one point, which is English speaking for other language learners or something like that. Am I correct?
English as secondary language, I believe.
Exactly. Thank you very much for clarifying that, because people were basically asking the question what it was. And so thank you, Naeem, for clarifying this. Let's talk about the effect of low literacy skills and how we can help people who come to this country, who migrate to Canada through different ways, and also like refugees, economic immigrants, and family reunification through literacy. Is that possible? Faduma would love to hear you about this, because I believe it is something that you deal with on the daily basis with your position.
Yes, so both my position. Hi, everyone. First of all, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be a part of this panel today. I think it's very important conversation, and really recognizing what literacy means to everybody and how the significance of it shows up for different people from different cultures and different immigration pathways. Definitely, we are able to support families and newcomer families with low literacy levels, but we really need to come at it from a lens of compassion and understanding around maybe they are illiterate in their own first language. And so that now takes a whole different turn or approach to how we're going to encourage literacy, how we're going to develop the love for literacy, the understanding of why it's important. If it's never been encouraged, if some of these families are coming from, being born in a refugee camp or being in a refugee camp and growing up there until they're maybe in their late 15, 16, 17-year-olds. And then they come to Canada and they're starting now what's called a structured literacy program, or a structured understanding of how literacy is going to be taught, but without the understanding of what that was before. This is very important to understand, and really meeting the learners, be it young children or adults, where they are, and really supporting the learning from the levels where they are. So definitely there is support out there in terms of programs and different ways that we can encourage that love for learning. Again, some cultures, literacy for them is oral, storytelling, right? And that shows up differently. So encouraging that even if they can't read and write in their first language, they can speak their first language fluently, encouraging that they continue that at home, that they don't all of a sudden abandon that first language to just focus on English, because that first language is kind of the foundation of how they're going to learn and develop other languages. So absolutely, I've seen it come up in, our homework programs with United for Literacy as a partner, and I've seen it come up within the classrooms where families are often at different stages of literacy and often might not even be literate in their own language.
Very interesting point, Faduma, because also language is also the vehicle of the culture as well. So it's very important to keep that very active. Venanti, any stake on that as well?
Yes, I think Faduma really made an important point, because as I'm speaking, I do coordinate different programs across Manitoba. So some of those programs, we do present those programs, deliver different services by partnering with settlement services. For example, we do have different programs in Western Manitoba, especially helping newcomers, refugees, to integrate in Western Manitoba. So the question that they face is extended literacy background. For example, the majority of those people, as Faduma said, they're coming from a refugee camp. Some of them, they have been staying in a refugee camp over 20 years, even if 35 years. And those people, the majority of them, they come with a lot of kids. You will find, family, single mothers have 7 to 8 children. And that mother, she doesn't even know how to write in their own language. And here, when they came to Canada, especially education standard, this system for Manitoba, they place children in a school based on their age without looking any set of education background or literacy background of those children. Here, for example, the kids will come when they are like, 12 years old. They're going to place them in the grade 6, and they never even if had an opportunity, even if to enter into grade 1. How can you expect that grade 6, that child to be in grade 6 when even if they don't even if have any basic literacy level, nothing. Those kids, they face different kind of issues, mental health, traumas, being a lack of confidence, being not understanding, or being at the same level of those Canadian-born kids. Definitely is horrifying, because a lot of those kids are the one that ended up either, taking, different path, which we believe those paths are not really good for everyone. So I believe, a lot of issues associated with the different kind of literacy in Canada is something really we have to look into. That is why, United for Literacy, we are trying to see how to figure out how we can support those high need literacy, clients. So
it's very interesting, because in a way also, when we focus more on the education system as well, we can end up asking ourselves, are we failing them? Because in the way the children, we ended up dropping out of school at one point, because not having access to the proper literacy level as well. So let's talk about literacy level here a bit. Parisa, can you tell us a bit more about the effect? What are the effects of low literacy levels? What can there be?
Sure, absolutely. In terms of the effect of low literacy on individuals, there are several factors. For example, when it comes to economic outcomes, there is a strong link between literacy and employment opportunities, employment and earnings outcome. So higher level of literacy basically leads to better employment and earnings outcomes for individuals. When it comes to, for example, just daily interactions, to be involved in the society, you need to have some levels of literacy to communicate and interact with others, even if you decide to not join the labor market immediately, and also to be able to gather information, to use resources, for example, access healthcare, education system for their children. So it's really basically lack of or low level of literacy prevents individuals to be involved into the society and into the labor market, gather information, interact with other individuals, and for some individuals it leads to isolation and disconnection from the rest of the society, which is something that definitely we don't want. We want immigrants to integrate into the society and also into the labor market. And also a sense of belonging, to the community. These are really important. One thing that I like to highlight, even in terms of education system, because after immigration, some individuals, they are facing a skills gap, not necessarily literacy, even in terms of technical skills that, or the type of skills that they gain and obtain when they're in their home country, to be able to, translate it to productive work in Canada. So, but sometimes there are skills gaps that individuals need to go to universities, take classes to be able to close those gaps. Without literacy, with low literacy and lack of language ability in the official language of Canada, they are not able to catch up. So all these factors affect the total outcomes for immigrants in terms of interaction into the society, having access to resources, and also leading to productive outcomes in terms of employment and earnings outcomes. One thing that I want to highlight here is that we talk about different immigration categories, and my research shows that there is a literacy gap in literacy skills across all immigration categories. For some it's larger, of course, for all the reasons that my panelists presented, but among even economic immigrants, those who are selected based on, for example, the language ability, education, we see literacy gaps even among those individuals with high level of education. Although higher level of education should translate into higher literacy, but sometimes because the language that they obtain their education is different from the first official language in Canada, they are not able to translate their skills into the type of skills we need in Canada. So the gap exists even among highly skilled immigrants.
So basically what you're telling us is that the high level of education doesn't necessarily means that you will not have literacy gaps as well. So that's a very interesting point that we have the tendency to forget because we have the tendency to believe that somebody who have a very strong level of education automatically will not face any literacy issues, which is not the case according to what you just mentioned. So you mentioned something, Parisa, that was very interesting. You mentioned, well, people have to integrate also within, first of all, within the society, but also definitely within the school system and the education system. And I would love to hear Maria on this, because we haven't heard you since the beginning of this conversation. I would love to hear what you think about integration. Should people have to integrate, and what does it mean to integrate into an education system?
Well, thank you very much for the introduction. And first of all, I think as the way as a newcomer, as a refugee myself, I think integration for me and for any newcomers to arrive in a host country, I think should be two ways. Like one is that, for instance, the settlement agency, we have a lot of information to know our host community. But I just wonder, the host community is knowing a bit, at least a bit about me as a refugee or as a migrant. I think chances are that if there is some information about migration, it's a little bit, then that is going to go to another misunderstanding that the host community, a few of them, they will be misunderstanding the definition of migration or the individual as an immigrant. And chances are that there is some individuals who may think like violence is coming because of migrants, or violence is becoming because of refugee, or something like it's something very negative, right? So I think and that is going to be like once again like talking about education, like talking about the refugee camp or people who are coming with low education. What is going to happen with our children or youth if you don't embrace them in their language? What is that language means? It's not, when we're talking about communication, it's not about oral speaking. It's about welcoming them in a meaningful way, knowing that the children, they may witness some horrendous things. So the children, when they come into school, or the youth, they're struggling with first like how to integrate in the school and fully. But we don't pay attention to that. We welcome them into saying, oh, you are 17 years old, welcome to grade 11. Imagine how is the stress that is dealing with, plus this also is stress that's supposed to be welcome the student, and instead to welcome him or her and saying, we have to provide well-being beside education. Let's talk to the language. And when I'm saying the language is the culture language of the youth. I'll never say on behalf of the youth. I have to listen to youth in their own language with interpretation, and in a meaningful way, give them the answer in order to come together and understand. And one day, that integration that we say as a settlement agency or Canada, welcome to Canada, and integration will happen as soon as possible, not too far. So many newcomers, they take maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 years to integrate fully in society.
It's what you mentioned is very interesting, and by the way, there are some strong reactions actually uploading your points. What you're saying is that basically we have two actions here. The first one is integration, which is the action that the person, the newcomer, will do in order to get, for his well-being within the new society. But there is also the model of the society preparing to welcome them, so including them within their own projects, within their community projects, and building a strong relationship with those newcomers and welcoming them. And we have some very interesting questions for the Q&A period. So we'll come back to that definitely, Jeremiah, because we have some very interesting questions that just came in. So I'll be reading those questions to you guys in a few minutes for the Q&A period. But let's talk about now the practitioners, and how can practitioners best support newcomers to Canada in a cultural, meaningful way, as you just mentioned, Jeremiah.
One of the experiences, as I said, when I work in a school, that I think one meaningful way is to put an artifact in the classroom, for example, or put something like, or learn at least how to say hello in my language. Imagine how happy I'll be if when I'm coming to the classroom as a kindergarten or as a high school student, hola, ¿cómo estás? Like, for example, right? Or sitting in the class for the first day and just by touching on my shoulder saying, hola. That means a lot to me. That's hola will be remind in my head all my entire life in Canada. So I think there is some aspect that our teacher, they're like, they are missing, like, because all the time we're saying, I don't have resources, I don't have the training. But I think in a practice of kindness, the language of kindness, we can provide a beautiful, meaningful, welcoming into our society and in the school. Our student, our EL student doesn't have to have English yet to express themselves. We can create, and as we have doing this in Friday, multicultural club. We have a multicultural night. We bring them and we celebrate their culture. And when we do that, we are not all just welcome the student, we're welcoming their parents, they will welcome the community. And this is one way to teach and to share our culture, our richness of our culture. So then our host community, they're not afraid anymore of me. When they see me on the street, they say, oh, that man was talking or was dancing or was drumming, So this is a culture education from what side. So there is a different way. And I use football, soccer to do my work. So, and several times that's where my client, they're sharing this horrendous information with me. So that's, I think, that's what I'm saying. We don't have to have English in order to embrace and practice kindness and welcoming in a meaningful way, children and youth in our classes, in our society in Canada.
It's very interesting because, of course, you mentioned the soccer, football, which is some kind of international language now that every culture use in order to get together. And we've been seeing, I remember learning this summer that in the area of Sherbrooke in Quebec and also here in Gatineau, there is a soccer tournament organized in order to make sure that people from different communities get to know each other. Literacy is very tied to culture as well in such a way, which is very important to keep in mind. So how does low literacy limit newcomers' ability to fully and meaningfully take part into the Canadian society again? So Parisa, I would love to hear you on that again. So what type of limit does it create, that low level of literacy, in order to be meaningfully, to take part meaningfully in the Canadian society?
Sure, absolutely. Low levels of literacy skills can have multi-layer dimensions, and the impact could be, all aspects of immigrants' life could be affected by that. I'll start with the part related to economic outcome, economic advantages, and employment advantages, because I think the ultimate goal for all immigrants is to be able to integrate into the labor market and to be able to build a life that the immigrants and their family can enjoy, and that means to be able to be productive, to have a good high-paying employment, and to be able to support their families. So low level of literacy skills basically prevents individuals to, first of all, in terms of employment opportunities, it limits employment opportunities for those individuals, so they are not able to apply for any jobs. Even sometimes they have required technical skills, but lack of literacy and not being able to apply their existing skills limit in these individuals to apply for those in jobs. And also in terms of gathering information, even where jobs are located, how to apply, how to prepare a resume or cover letter to apply for a job, to be able even to have a successful interview. So all these low literacy affects all these elements to be able to find a good employment and to have a good payment after finding an employment. Another factor that is going to affect its social cohesion, to be able to interact with neighbors, to be able to have to be involved in the community, to have access to resources, as for example, to healthcare. For example, if someone has health issues and they are not able to even find a good doctor, and to be able to find a family doctor, or to communicate in terms of what are their issues, if they are not able to communicate and to be able to find the information, they are not able to get the resources. Even in terms of addressing their low literacy skills, to be able to have access to learning resources, to classes, to register or find places to get those information and to participate. So that also affect learning process, educational process to address the gaps and to be able to involve into the society and interact with others. They have to isolate themselves and not interact, which also affects family dynamic. For example, if their children go to school and they learn, children, they learn a language so quickly, so they catch up more quickly than their parents. So if there are gaps, if parents are not able to catch up, there will be also some gaps within family, and it also affects family dynamic.
Yes, and also create some kind of tensions as well
Exactly.
within the family, because children now have a switch also in culture as well because of the language, and create some kind of language barrier at home as well, which can be very tricky. So you were talking about children. So let's talk about the children, which is very important. So how do children and parents support each other to understand the education system? Jeremiah, I would love to hear you about that, because I know the type of work that you do, and you saw also you mentioned football as a way of reaching out. And I will keep talking about football. This is one of my passion, because when I moved to this country several hundreds of years ago, so I will hide my age, football was a way to integrate it within the community, because when I came to this country, it was the mid-'80s. There weren't a lot of immigrants at the time. So football was a way for me to integrate within the community as well. So how do children and parents support each other, understanding, the education system?
Yes, when I'm sharing experience, I think one of the best way is to be respectful toward the children. Just a friendly reminder that the children are human beings, that they have feelings, they are under stress too. So I think as being a father or a parent, we have to be mindful with that. That if I'm dealing with the stress, with depression, my children, they are doing the same. So in order to support my children, I have to listen. I have to go and play with him or her and visit in the school. And once again, I don't have to have the language in order to help my son or my daughter to integrate into a school. And unfortunately, we hear so many parents like, "Oh, there is no homework. The education system here doesn't work. It's horrible. My country is better. Why? They provide homework. There is so much, and my kids' education is like that and like that." To me, it is. We have to be very mindful that our children, they are in a process of adjusting, and they're struggling into trying to get into society, and they're dealing with two cultures right now when they're coming to school. The culture of integration. And keep in mind that if it's a teenagers, the Canadian teenager is fighting to get into the community too. So imagine as somebody who's different from culture, we smell different, we speak different, we don't talk the language yet. So chances are that when I'm speaking in English, when I'm trying to cross my ideas when presenting in class, my classmates, they may laugh at me, they would smile. So very innocently, but I feel that they're making fun of me, right? So there's that culture that I'm trying my best to integrate, but then my parents, they're pushing me to integrate faster, or I'm doing less. And the culture values by saying, when the students, they're coming back home, they're trying to imitate the Canadian culture, and they have our culture at home. There is a culture clash where the parents, they're trying to obligate the student to stay in their culture, and that can be impossible because the children, they're adjusting, they're trying to integrate. So then they coming back, the student, imagine in their mind is, I'm not accepting fully here in my class, in my school, and I'm not accepting at home. So that is where I personally think that the student themselves are coming with their third culture where they're going to make one decision and picking up the cultural values from their own culture in combination with the Canadian culture. And there is one individual who are coming to have the integration is struggling with both cultures. There is we do parenting, and what we're hearing many times is complaining. My son, it used to be different, but now he's a different individual. So, and we have to think and we have to understand that we are individual, we are human, and doesn't matter where you're coming from, we are human, and we have to be mindful and respectful. And when we begin with that, thinking and being mindful that the 5 years old or the 17 years old is a human being too.
Yes, so that's a very interesting point. I would love to hear the other panelists on this as well. What type of experience did you how did you experience that, as well as, sometimes parents or even children, and the way to understand the school system, which is not an easy task usually, and also in Canada we have different education system with regard to the province where we live. So I would love to hear you panelists on this. Fatuma, maybe you can start.
Yes, so there is a few things in terms of schools just trying to make families feel welcomed, bringing them on board, helping them with the orientation. Of course, there's school settlement workers that are there to support some of that transition. But ultimately, it comes down to the genuine ways in which the classroom teacher or the staff in the school are creating that sense of belonging, where, like Jeremiah said, there's that acceptance of who they are. Their language, just the welcoming sign of, having said hello in their own language or welcome, being able to talk about during, certain themes during the classroom around curriculum, around traditions and cultures. What do you celebrate? Are you fasting? What is Ramadan? What is Eid? Really introducing the different types of cultures and beliefs within the school environment and creating that safe space is very important for newcomer families, like it would be for any other child who is coming to school to learn. So creating those safe spaces and allowing, learning to happen naturally between those who are Canadian born, who might not know, might have never heard of it, and those who are coming with those cultures. And to speak to Jeremiah's point around just culture, two different cultures, right? Children are stepping out and all of a sudden they're in that Canadian culture and they're having to adapt and find their ways. They just want to belong. They just want to be accepted. They want to have that friendship. They want to have those connections. But a lot of those kids have been friends since kindergarten, and now we're in grade 7. Exactly. And so then they're in that situation of, how do I fit in? And so they're trying to just fit in. And then they're coming home, but those values and cultures and religions are very much a part of their identity. So how do we bring those, and how do we foster those identities within the school and within the education system in an authentic way to celebrate and honor all of those experiences, I think makes a big difference in how we create that sense of belonging and kindness within the school environment.
It's very interesting because we can also say that some of our children may sometimes have 2 or 3 different culture during the same day, because at home, of course, they use the mother tongue, they have the culture at home, and also when they move into the school bus and suddenly it's kind of mixed, and then you have to, when you get into the classroom, you have to speak English or French, and it's totally different to what you do at home. And culturally wise, it kind of create some kind of tension in a way. Naeem, I would love to hear you about this, and to hear what is your say. How do you feel about the role of parents and children, and how can they work together and support themselves in order to understand the school system and the education system?
Okay, just to add on Faduma's point, I think it's a good idea to have like a teacher. Let's say, for example, in that school where a lot of people are from one region, let's say from Persia, to have a teacher who comes from, his origin is from Persia. So he might know the neighbor, that region. So I think, I know that it's a challenge and it's difficult to do that, but it's one way to so people they can understand the culture. Because, for example, myself, when I came here, in my country, we don't, for example, I'm talking about social culture now. When I went to the store, I pick up an item, and when I went to pay it, it was different price from the price tag, which in my country didn't happen. I used to pay the same price what I saw in a price tag, but here there are different things that you can see that there are differences in culture. Also, I heard some countries that they have different different day, like for example, different days of the month. They have
Mhm.
more days in January, February. So these are some differences that you can notice between, for example, your country where you're coming from and Canada. In terms of language, for example, while I was talking even with my teacher, Yuanda, one double-edged sword. Here it has a different. We have the same expression, but it has a different, completely different meaning. So you find out after, for example, you go to these classes. For example, here it means that the situation can have both good and bad, but in my country means that it's one way worse and it both way worse,
Mhm.
double-edged sword. So yeah, so you notice this kind of thing, and even when it comes to the kids, they sometimes they come home and they need your help because. And that's when you feel like you find yourself in a situation where you can help them and you want to help them. So for example, and sometimes happens the opposite. They teach you for example, nervous. In my country we use nervous, but we use nervous when you're angry, but
Mhm.
here is when you're not confident. So these are some things that you find out and you learn only when you attend classes. Even this social culture things, you notice the difference. And yeah, so it's tough. It's not easy, but it's not impossible to fix the issue.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very interesting point that you just raised, Naeem, and the cultural differences sometimes, and the use of the proper words, the wording also, and the expressions which we don't have because sometimes, English may be your fourth or fifth language, for instance, and people are not that patient with you, either, or even same in French, and they will try to correct you as well. And sometimes it can be very frustrating also
It's
when
true.
it happens because you trying your best and you have somebody else correcting you every single time. But I wonder, I haven't heard Venantia on this, but I would love to hear her perspective as well.
So I think I would like to speak on, especially for integration strategies. So as we all know that there are different kind of form of immigrant category. At this moment for me, I just focus on refugees, immigrant to Canada, because based on my personal experience and then also based on the um, the client I work with, what I found out is once, especially refugees, immigrants come to Canada, they meet those kind of program, I can say, branded in program. Is just like settlement services. They use those standardized services based on Canadian immigration outline to help, you know, newcomers, immigrant to Canada. But once you look deep, especially those refugees, immigrants who come to Canada, they have a lot of issues. Number one issue I would like to say is trauma associated of war-based or different kind of issue they have faced in where they came from, even if the experience of them being in a refugee camp. those people, they came to Canada with a high level of trauma in the parent, in the children. So once they came, everything is just general orientation system. But I feel like especially children in school, it would be better if they can come up with specialized counseling services for refugees, student learners, and newcomers to help them to cope with the stress of immigration, trauma, and culture adaptation. I believe this support would help those students who come with a heavy trauma associated with war, and then also the trauma associated with kind of social phobia in the country where they are coming in. Social phobia associated with lack of cultures, lack of understanding, fear of, lack of language. I feel like, oh my God, how am I going to express my feeling? How am I going to communicate with my fellow student I'm joining in this class? I believe that if maybe there would be special program or services to extended program to help specialize for those students who are facing and the family who are facing those type of high level of trauma. For example, I just is personal to me because there's some the client I used to work with, they came to Canada with beautiful children, a wonderful family, but at the end, the situation did not end well for them. And sometimes when I see, I feel like if they would take great care, have paying attention, receive great support system, especially within the settlement services. I know central settlement services, they are overwhelmed. They have a high level of high need and less funded. How are they going to support a high level of, arrival, high need client without support themselves, even if they need it from government? So again, I feel like, especially in school, I think settlement services, they would need more support to fit in, because especially in settlement support, you will meet immigrants from all over the world. So each immigrant have different issues, different background, they need the cultural adaptation. Without having those and to fulfill those needs, definitely will still be a challenges. The question is, how can we support to solve those issues? I feel like it's something ongoing. We have to discuss where we can solve those issues and the way to help, especially for me, what I'm focusing on immigrant refugees who come up with a high level of traumas. How can we support their parents to integrate, especially in literacy term? How can we also try to help their children to overcome from trauma and literacy, because it's connected always.
It's very interesting because of course, trauma is something that we need to take under consideration, of course, when we talk about literacy, when we talk about inclusion and the integration of newcomers in this country. And I'm wondering now, how can, this question is for you, Venantia, how can exactly organization can actually design adult literacy program to be more informed and more equipped in order to face this?
That's a good question. I actually this year we United for Literacy have, especially in my region where I coordinate, we started with a literacy programming for children and youth in through partnership with the settlement organization. So when we're trying to provide different kind of program, we have a reading tent program, and then from here, I received a more request need for adult immigrant who wanted to join reading tent program for children and youth.
Wow.
And what we done, we just welcome them, all of them. They will come through reading tent program. And then also because, those parents, they have the kids from grade 1 until grade 6. So what we done, we welcome every one of them. So they take a time to read for one another, to eat for each other. And then also we had intern staff, literacy intern staff, who was supporting those programming. We find that was really great experience. I was kind of culture integration literacy programming. We started as a kind of reading tent, by reading tent for kids, but we ended up finding out that even if they are parents, they would benefit from those literacy activity and resources. And really was really good because that did create those kind of comfortable environment, because those newcomers are not from only one country, they are from all over the world. For them, children and the parent to join, it does create those social integration of opportunities for social gathering, and then also trying to learn from one another, sharing different kind of culture background. So that's, I find that is really great program. So that is why in this year we are planning, now we are trying, it will depend of the funding. We are trying to create online program for adult newcomers. And then also we are planning to create also in-person youth literacy programming, especially in Western Manitoba. When I say Western Manitoba, when I say is a part of Brandon and surrounding area. So to cut in short, I believe for us as United for Literacy, to achieve more, to help more literacy to extend across a different category, I believe, is to create a literacy program for youth. At the same time, also to help those newcomers, immigrant youth, to have those join literacy with the parents. That it does, those program would encourage them, encourage children and the parents to have a family time. Let's have family time for reading. Let's have family time for storytelling. Again, those can be achieved for sure, because we believe, based on our resource to the program we created, it does show that a lot of parents, they really need the support at the same time with children. Another example, I do coordinate online program. We have math club, homework club for children and youth. So, but usually we send the online registration. We send the registration to fill out. But interesting, we also received the request need from their parents. Can we also, can you help us to get one-on-one tutoring to help us to improve English? So I get across to some parents where they express, so yes, we go for English, in-person English program. But as Jeremiah said, sometimes those English program there is just standardized where you meet like they will join level 1 to grade 3 in one classes. So in those of 1 to grade 3, they are joining in a class. Here, those grade 3 who are just level 3, sorry, who are trying to, they will be the one performing more in a class. And then those people who are in level 1, they will feel like, oh my God, overstressed. They feel like they're not doing well. That creates loss of hope in literacy. That's where special adult learner, they decide, oh my God, this is not working. So I believe based on request need for those adults who are reaching out to us, okay, I think we need the help from you for one-on-one tutoring. We need extra literacy support from you. So I feel as like United for Literacy, I think would be great opportunity to also focus more on adult newcomers, adult English learners. I think that's really try to minimize those challenges.
Yes, thank you, Valentia. I think Faduma wanted to add something
Yes,
because I
I
can
was
see you
really,
reacting.
yes, everything you're saying was great. And I'd like to really center us back to that family approach, right? Often we're giving supports to youth and children, but if the parents are left out of that, then that family, just like what Parisa was saying, that breakdown happens where the parents feel not empowered, not able to help their children at home. They don't understand what the children are coming home with. So that love for literacy and developing that as a whole family, I think is an amazing approach. And it's something that we need to see more happening. I find that our Western society often just really is more focused on youth and children and adults separately, right? It's adults and then youth and children, but never together and fostering what that family looks like.
I find that very interesting to see, strategies that we can develop in the future and having some kind of approach. We have a lot of questions coming from the audience here, and I'm going to read a few of them to you guys because I think they're very valuable. Unfortunately, time is running, so we cannot answer all the questions. Maybe we may have to do another forum. I'm just saying that out loud, but that's a conversation to have with United for Literacy, of course. But we have a lot of very interesting questions that came from the chat. So I'm going to read the first one that came from Tom. Tom mentioned this. My literacy experience overseas focused on multilingual education, which was mother tongue based. Much research affirms that learning literacy in the mother tongue is the best way to be literate in the larger of wider communication. Does Canada have this type of approach? So I will give the floor maybe to Parisa to answer this one, and maybe anybody who will love to follow as well.
To the best of my knowledge, in terms of providing literacy training in mother tongue of immigrants, I know, for example, there are some classes for children from any community, the Iranian or Arabs or any other countries, they can find, for example, classes that they can send their children to learn literacy in the mother tongue of parents, and to be able to advance and communicate at home, and also when they return or travel to their home country. I'm not sure about these type of classes for adults, to be honest, but I know they exist for children. They exist for children, And but in terms of who provides, sometimes it's community, those community from a specific region or countries, they get together, they provide that. Sometimes it might be from schools or education system, but I'm not aware of anything related to adults.
Yeah,
That's very
so
interesting. Yes, Fatuma.
yeah, there are international language classes that both school boards offer here in Waterloo, Kitchener, Ontario, where I am. And that is on various mother tongue languages. And it's for children, anywhere from, JK, SK, all the way to grade 12 to help them maintain their language. But I haven't seen anything for adults. Just like Parisa said, I haven't seen that.
Thank you very much. Another question, maybe Jeremiah, do you have a point to add to this one?
No, but something like I do in a practical way, as our colleague mentioned here, like as the culture is speaking, where when there is something main or very important decision that my teenager has to take, sometimes several times I may have to ask mom and dad to accompany me, just for example, to a selection course, bring him or her with interpreter and help your student to do a selection course. Several times that's helped a lot. In the school, in the education system in Canada, no, the student himself does that with the guidance. But in my practice, in my way, I ask the student, how do you feel? And of course, several times confused. So this is just a little example that I'm in practice and work pretty well.
There is another amazing question that came up, and I have to say I really love this one. It's a question from Jen, and the question goes as is: how do we incorporate the voices of immigrants in how we design literacy, education, and language policies? So a good question, and I don't know who would like to jump in. Parisa.
I can do that. So in terms of the policy about language, or even providing language lessons, literacy lessons and classes for immigrants, I would say, first of all, any organization, government, anyone who wants to be involved in preparing this type of planning or policy, first of all, they need to identify literacy needs and the goal. So we talk today that we are facing quite broad type of immigrants with different backgrounds, different literacy needs. For example, we have economic immigrants. Their goal is to integrate into the labor market immediately. And we have refugees. They just want to be able to find a place to live and to escape, those trauma that they had, but also to be able to be able to get connected to the new society and feel safe. And for family, it's really important to be able to interact with the rest of the family who are involved in the society and in the labor market, and so to be able to do that. And also the world around us and the labor market, the world is evolving. Just give you an example. For example, when you go shopping, the self-checkout, there are stores that you have to do it yourself. You have to be able to, for example, identify the items that to find the items that you are going to purchase, its name in English, or to be able to read, even simple things. To do a shopping for yourself, it requires some level of literacy. And we know, for example, not all immigrants, they have the same level of literacy when they arrive. They have different type of literacy gaps, and also in terms of their goal and motivation. So we have to understand that first. the learning should be targeted. It should be tailored to the group of people we want to provide training. And another factor that is really important to consider when it comes to the policy, there are two things. First of all, flexibility, understanding what prevents individuals in the participation. Sometimes it's time, sometimes it's financial barriers. For example, for the head of the household, they need to find a job, to be able to produce some earnings to support the family. Sometimes they have no time to participate in any training. For example, for mothers or a spouse that are responsible for their children. So if they are responsible for taking care of young children, they can't find time to take any courses or classes. So we have to consider those type of barriers and how to address those to be able to encourage people to participate in these type of trainings. And another thing is really important, the quality of education and training we provide is really important to ensure that the time and the money that we put into providing resources and individual the time that they spend to take these resources to classes, we get the best outcome. We need high quality, and also we have to adopt and change this program based on the needs of immigrants and the labor market, the society. It changes frequently. We need to measure outcomes.
Interesting point. I would love to ask a question to Naeem. Because you use the service of United for Literacy when you moved to this country. If given the chance, would you change anything in the offer that you received?
No, it's a good service. I believe Canada has a good system of providing this facilities and resources when it comes to learning, adult learning, and people that they want to advance in language. Even for people who work, I have friends who they work during the day and then they go at 6 o'clock, they attend classes. So the thing that I would change is that to inform, because a lot of people they don't know that these resources exist. So it's a good idea, for example, when they come to be prepared for these people and give them like a pamphlet or something that they can find easy these resources. Because a lot of people, they come here and they don't have a family. And because usually the family is the one who tell them all these resources. But what about the people that they don't have any family here? So they are confused and, the time passes by and they just don't know. So it's a good idea to have them informed, and one way is to target these people when they come here, maybe by asking questions and then giving these pamphlets. And the other thing is that I want to point out that a lot of people they think they know the language, they learn the language, proper language, by just talking to people in a lobby or talking to people in a park or a mall. But the way to learn proper language, the only way is by attending these classes. Because I believe a lot of people, they if you talking casually to people, let's say in the mall or whatever, they might not correct you, even if they notice the mistakes you're doing, because they feel like they're offending you or whatever reason. So it's good to educate these people that these classes are important so they can be part of the society and part of the education system as well.
Yes, and be meaningful also to Canadian society in a way. And Naeem, thank you very much. Just one last question that I really have to ask you guys, because it is something that just keep coming into the conversation. We're talking about literacy, but we're also talking about language here. And so I would like to ask you this, do you see a difference between the two, between learning literacy and literacy learning, and also language learning? Do you see some kind of difference between the two for newcomers? Anybody who would like to answer this one? Well, nobody wants to answer this one.
Can I go ahead?
Please.
I think a language is the most important to learn, because you can't progress or run different things without having at least basic language to the language you are trying to run or integrating. So I think that's the answer I would like to, the comment I would like to comment.
Thank you. Unfortunately, time is running up. So I would like to thank everybody for attending this forum, and thank very much for United for Literacy for organizing this. It's a great gathering that we had today in order to share our views on literacy and how important it is in order to build more sustainable society and more inclusive society as well in communities here across our country. It is very important for the future of this country, since we have a very high number of newcomers that we would like to welcome and include into the society that we are building here in Canada. So thank you all. Thank you very much, Marissa, Naim, Faduma, Venantier, Jeremiah, and all the panelists who attended this event, and of course of the team. A big thank you to the team of United for Literacy, Melanie Valsin and her amazing team who put this together. And of course, I would like to give a warm thank you to all the translators as well, who worked, I guess, very hard today, since I sometimes speak a little bit too fast. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup à vous tous. Je vous souhaite à tous une excellente journée. Don't go anywhere. We still have breakout rooms that you can attend, of course, and you can actually, you do have access to the links in the chat. The links were shared also during the with the last email, and I just saw the link was put in the chat again, so you can go out there and go to the breakout rooms in order to meet the panelists and have another conversation again on this the topic of literacy. Thank you very much, and thanks to everybody who made this possible this year, and hopefully we will see you next year. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.